Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how I prune my raspberry bushes at the beginning of the season. I actually have 2 raspberry bushes, so I'm going to go through what I have, and I also want to give you some tips for growing them in containers because these have been one of the easiest plants for me to grow in containers. So first off, let me tell you a little bit about this bush. So this is a heritage everbearing raspberry bush. I got it in the fall of 2020 from Stark Bros, and it's planted in, I think this is about an 18-inch diameter pot. It has been in this pot since fall of 2020. The only thing I do to overwinter it is push it back in that corner back there. I don't cover it, I don't do anything else, and it has now survived. So this will be its 5th year in my garden. So that's really exciting. I have grown other berry bushes, well, really only blueberries. Those for me didn't do well, but I know they do great for other people. But I had issues with getting blight every spring. I think it was because of how moist the soil stays, but I don't know for sure. But that's an issue I had with blueberries. I've never had any sort of disease issues with my raspberries. So if you have a container garden and you like raspberries, I do recommend growing them. The only kind of drawback for me is that they take up a lot of space. So these get pretty large during the season. Now there are dwarf varieties, I just didn't grow one. So I love raspberries enough that it's worth them taking up the space in my garden. If you don't, then definitely look for a dwarf variety or pick a berry that you truly love. Now I did mention that I have 2 raspberry bushes. I'll show you the other one in just a second, but with this one, again, I got this from Stark Bros. The other one I propagated from this plant. So I've only ever purchased 1 raspberry bush. I have 2 in my garden, and that's one of the things I love about raspberries in containers is that you can easily propagate them, but they don't spread as crazily as they would in the ground because, again, they're contained in a pot. So this is one where I think I'd prefer to always grow it in a container, even if I had a yard. But it's really easy to just dig out one of the runners, plant it, and I'm pretty sure I did that in the spring, I think, of 2021, and it produced berries the first year, the propagated one. So I love raspberries for that reason. Now let me talk to you a little bit about everbearing versus summer-bearing raspberries, and then the different ways that you can prune it. There are 2 ways. I'm just going to do one because it's my preferred method, but you can do 2 depending on how many harvests you want. So on raspberry bushes, there are first-year canes, which are called primo canes, and the second-year canes are called floor canes. Now, if you have a summer-bearing raspberry, it's just going to produce 1 harvest on the floor canes in the summer. If you have an everbearing, you can prune it to either do 2 harvests, a smaller one in the summer and then 1 later on in the fall, or just prune it so that there's 1 larger harvest in the fall. That's what I'm gonna do. So I did it, with each of my bushes last year, I did 1, the one way where it produces 2, 1 the other way where it produces 1. And honestly, the raspberries, I think were ready less than a month apart. And because I only have 2 bushes, a smaller amount, I would rather get a larger harvest all at once, just in case I wanna make anything like jam or something that I have enough to do that. So, well, and also it's just easier to do it the way that produces only 1 harvest. So all of those things put together, that's why I'm going to do it that way. But I will talk a little bit about the other option if you do want 2 harvests. I do want to quickly mention as well that these are self-pollinating, so you don't need more than 1 to get raspberries. But from everything I've read, if you do have more than 1, they'll be a little bit more productive. But I only had, well, no, I guess I got this in 2020 and then I propagated. So I guess technically I've always had 2 when they're ready to harvest. So I can't really tell a difference between when I had 1 versus when I had 2, but they should still produce berries with just 1, which again, in a small garden, you might only have space for 1 of the raspberries. Now, the time of year when you should prune your raspberries is late winter, early spring. So we're still technically, we're in the late winter period, but usually I don't have buds and leaves opening on the old canes at this point in time. But because it's been so unseasonably warm, we have. So I've definitely shifted all of my gardening tasks about 2 weeks earlier, so I definitely need to get this one pruned. So let me talk now about the 2 different ways to prune, and then we'll actually go ahead and get this one cut back. So if you want to prune for 2 harvests, on the first-year canes that fruited last year just on the tips, you want to cut back to right below where you see the berries were last year. Then those will fruit lower down the cane this year. In fact, let me take you up close so you can kind of see what that looks like. Let's look at this branch right here. So you can see where the berries formed all up here. If I was going to do a prune to get 2 harvests, I can just cut right below there. And then that's also a good way. I mean, again, I can tell the buds are swelling, this is alive, but if you cut back and you see green, you know you're at a good place, and you know that your bush has survived the winter. So that's what you want to do if you want 2 harvests. And then any of the canes, which I don't think this one has any because I'm pretty sure I cut it all back last year, but let's say that I left this cane, cut it here, it fruited down here this year, then I'd be able to see that, and then those I would want to remove completely. You can also take out anything in here if you are going to leave the first year canes that's small, that's broken, that is kind of just taking up space and you want more airflow. So you can do pruning like that as well. But that's how you're going to prune if you want 2 harvests. So again, let's take a look at this one here. I would just cut below and make sure I see green where I cut. Then it'll fruit down the rest of the cane, and that's going to be your summer harvest. Now what I'm going to do, because I only want 1 harvest and because it's easier, is cut everything down to 1 inch above the soil. And that's it. That's all you have to do. Now that is going to eliminate the summer harvest, but again, I'll have a larger harvest in the fall, which is what I want. Just 1 fall harvest for both of my raspberry bushes. What I'm going to use are these gloves. These are from, I always forget the brand name, Hands On from Amazon. These are the only gloves that I don't get stabbed working with raspberries or rose bushes. I've had other gloves in the past that were like supposedly made for those plants, and I still got stabbed. So I will link these down below. I think they also do pet gloves, like pet brushing gloves. I've never used the pet brushing gloves, but I really like these. I don't use them very often because I'm not often touching my raspberry bushes or my rose bushes, except when I'm pruning or maybe moving them around. But when I need them, they come in handy. So I still think it's worth having them. And then I'm also going to use some pruners. All right, let's start pruning. You can see I can grab the stems fine and I feel nothing. I don't think you want to do it with the back because that seems a little bit thinner, but with this front, it's perfect. You know what, I did just touch the back, and yes, it is pokey on the back, so careful for that. It also could be a good idea, unless you're just more careful than I am, but sometimes, more often when I'm carrying my plants around, I'll almost stab myself in the eye. So if you put on like sunglasses or eyeglasses, that might potentially be helpful as well. But you can see, I think I almost just stabbed myself in the eye then, but you can see how easy this method is. Instead of trying to figure out, not that it's super difficult, but instead of trying to figure out which ones are the first year canes, which ones are the second year canes, pruning them in different ways, I just cut all of this back. And that's it. That's everything I have to do to prune my raspberry bushes. Also a good time to prune your other berry bushes if you have them. So I'm going to prune the other one really quickly the exact same way. Again, that was a propagation from this one, and then I'll show you where I'm going to put them for now, although they might move. I might consider moving a few things around the garden this year, except for the raised beds, because they're not going anywhere. Here's one raspberry, there's the other one. They're both pruned, ready for the season. I'm actually going to leave them here for now because the sun is still so low that it doesn't hit the spot where I normally have them. Let me show you where that is. So normally my berry bushes are in this corner, and again, it's pretty shaded right now, but as the sun gets higher in the sky during the summer, there's no issue with them getting full sun. However, one issue I've had is that if anyone sits here, there's often a raspberry bush right behind them that will stab them. So I might move one somewhere else, or maybe both of them somewhere else. I'm not really sure yet, but that is at least where they've been the last few years. And that's everything for today's video. It's, again, a really abnormally nice day. I think it's going to dip a little bit pretty soon here over the next few days, but that's such a simple garden maintenance task, and it always feels good because now that's opened up the little space where I can walk through, whereas before I was getting stuck with the raspberry bush thorns. But that's it. A very easy, simple task day. I'm going to spend the rest of the day reading garden magazines outside, enjoying the 60-degree weather. I hope if it's abnormally warm where you are, or if it's normally warm where you are, you're getting outside and enjoying the day. But thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions about raspberries in containers, and I will see you in the next one. Oh, and I will show you very soon how I refresh the soil on all of my perennials in my garden.